it works.
Yeah, hopefully your internet holds out.
I know, huh? I don't know what the heck's going on.
Come on, YouTube. There we are. Hello, friends. We're here. Crystal survived.
Okay, there we are. All
Yep.
right. Hello. This is exciting. Which edition do you have? Do you have this one with the step back? Does yours have the step back in it?
Yeah.
It's so pretty. I love it.
Yeah. I still want the OG more than I want the step back though.
I do also, but
I found that. But it's still pretty cool because all of like Loretta's Chase in this series, they have that watercolor design, and I really like that.
I think I have another book in this series that does have the step back in it. I need to find it.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Jessin, you did?
Jessin, we know. Don't brag about it. Sorry, I'm like a little low energy, guys. Back on the like coming off of vacation, back to the 8 to 5 life. I'm like energy drained today.
Yeah. Plus, learning a new job, like that's hard, you know?
Yes.
Like new people you work with.
Right. Well, it's like one of the guys I work with, he's just very focused. So he's not rude, but he definitely has resting bitch face like all the time. So like I come in to ask something, and it's like, what do you need? Okay, yep. And it's just all very like, and I'm like, okay. I know you're not being mean to me, but that's hard for me.
Yeah, that's hard.
But I mean, I'll loosen him up eventually. I'm good at that, so we'll get there. But on the plus side, I've still been able to read all the time.
Yeah, your reading has not slowed down pretty much at all.
No, I mean, yeah, I've been lucky. They keep saying, because they're like, we don't have anything for you to do yet, but you will. And I'm like, okay, I believe you, but I will. Like this week I made a bunch of phone calls, and now I'll have like weekly phone calls to do, but still that's only for like an hour and a half every day. And then I have the rest of the day to do stuff. But anyway, sorry. Enough talking about my job.
It's good. It's all good.
So we read Lord of Scoundrels.
I finally read it.
Read it.
I finally read it.
I'm really glad I picked this for my favorite pick because
I'm really glad you picked it too, because I probably would not have tried it again for a really, 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 really long time.
I know that you just kept getting distracted, but was there something that was holding you up of it, or you just weren't catching? Sorry to this part, but like
so there wasn't anything about the story itself really that was turning me off. Like there wasn't anything where I was like, I don't like this, I don't like the characters. Like there was nothing like that. But there is something specific with her writing style that I feel is not conducive to keeping you in the story really well. And it was a little bit of the hype too. The hype definitely, Jessin said it was the hype. Yeah. The hype definitely added some pressure, you know? Yeah. But she does this, and I noticed this in another Loretta Chase book that I read, where she will have a scene, and she'll have both of her characters, and they're having dialogue, and there's this scene that's happening that's really intriguing. And then she'll pull back into one of the characters' heads, and she'll have like a memory, or she'll have something that takes you out of that scene. And that's always just hard for me, especially when it happens in the beginning. Like it happened in that first scene when they meet in the shop when she's talking to her brother, you know. And it took me a while to realize that's what was happening, but I think that was the thing that just made it like, it didn't make it real engaging right off the bat for me. It was just kind of a little, but I don't think that it's a bad writing style. It just was, I think that was kind of pulling me out of the story and making it hard for me to stay engaged. So I wasn't really connecting with the characters.
Okay, well, I'll tell my story about it. Well, we have to pause for Kazi. So I agree with you because I was noticing that on the reread because I'd heard you say that stuff before. I think the thing for me is that, so did I read this at the beginning of this year or did I read it last year? I don't even remember when, but I know that I read it. It was super hyped for me too, but I read it in a car ride. That's something that I've started doing with ones where I'm not sure if I'm going to like it. I'll put it on when I do my drive home to my parents and leave it on for the whole 2.5 hours there. And if I'm not liking it by the time I got home, then I'll be like, okay, I gave you 2.5 hours or whatever. We're like done. And so I think for me, I was just so engaged in the like flowy way of the story. It was a great one to listen to on the road that by the time I got there, I literally like didn't want to put it down because it was already getting so like their banter was happening and all this stuff was happening. But I acknowledged upon the reread that I'm like, it is a style. I'd also, since then, I've read another one of hers too, Not Quite a Lady, which someone recommended as like, I saw someone on Instagram was like, this book made me cry so much. And I was like, I want Loretta Chase to make me cry again. So I read that one and she does the same thing. And again, though, that one was like, it fit that story well because there's like a secret someone's keeping. So we were like kind of, they would tell us a little bit about the secret each time they would have one of those moments. And so I liked it. But also 100% I'll say Kate Redding is one of my favorite narrators ever to grace my ears. So I was happy to listen to her do anything. Like, she's a fantasy narrator mostly, but she also does historical romance.
I really think she was a fantastic narrator. And I do also feel like
brilliant.
Because I was listening to the audio and like this isn't uncommon, but because he shared a name with his father, there were so much in the early beginning when you're just talking about his childhood and it happened with his mother and everything like that, that it was kind of hard for me to differentiate like who are we talking about again? Like, are we talking about the dad or are we talking about... So I think probably just that I was in a easily distracted mindset, which happens to me sometimes with audiobooks. And it's not necessarily the narrator or the book itself. It's just that my mind is just wandering and I'm having a hard time paying attention, you know? So I feel like it's kind of hard for me to say exactly why this didn't work for me. And initially, and that's the only thing that I can really pinpoint that I know is going to pull me out of the story, just the same way as like if it switches points of view too often, like if you have multiple points of view, which doesn't happen in romance very often, but it does in fantasy. That can also be hard for me to stay engaged with the story, you know. But I liked Justin's comment that you really have to pay attention to her writing. It's almost like she's describing a storyboard. I think that's exactly what it was, honestly.
She sets up the whole area around you, like specifically like the scene where she goes to Dane's house to get her brother and like room to room she's going through describing everything. Like it just set up the whole scene. Like we know where everyone is and everything. If you're paying attention, it's really great. But we should. And
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say I think we should like do our ratings and then start diving into those parts of it because we're gonna get too far in. Because I was like to talk about a bunch of things, but go ahead.
Just gonna say one more thing about like I feel like with some like my favorite books, historical romance books specifically, are ones where I'm not noticing the writing. Like I don't want to notice the writing. I don't want it to really stand out. And so I feel like that was a little jarring because I had just come from reading a bunch of Lisa Kleypas. And for me, her books are so easily immersible, like right off the bat. Like I feel like I'm there with the characters, that it's like I don't notice her writing. Like it's such a good storytelling that I don't notice it. Whereas when I went from her straight into Loretta Chase, it was such an abrupt change in her writing style that does draw attention to it. And I kind of struggle with that. So anyway, yes, let's go into ratings.
Yeah. Well, this is a 6-star book for me, obviously, because I picked this one. Before I even had 6-star books, this one is. And I have a lot of specific reasons why, which we'll get into. But again, like I can acknowledge all the things everyone's saying. This book just ticks a lot of specific boxes for me. And it also goes again, like I'm going to get into some things. Like this also has some character traits for both of our main characters that I normally despise in them, which would normally make me like DNF a book. Oh my god, I have a fly in here. It would normally like make me despise them. Like, oh, Monica, the wrong show. No, I'm just kidding. But like,
we're gonna need to know about that. That's interesting, Monica.
Yeah. Well, she already said there's a scene that made her not like. Well, we'll get into it.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. This has a lot of like different aspects that I normally wouldn't like, but the way that Loretta Chase handles them and the way that these two characters are just so inexplicably drawn together that it makes it work for me. So yeah, I'll definitely want to get into that, but yeah.
This was a 5-star read for me for sure. Even though there were things that that weren't perfect for me, like I feel like, and this is in general how I rate books. There were things that I noticed that weren't perfect, that if I wanted to be critical, I could say, yeah, it was a 4-star, it was 4.5 star. But there were also at least 3 specific scenes that I'm thinking of that were so powerfully emotional that it just like, all of those concerns were just like minor compared to the power of those scenes. So the beautifully powerful scenes outweighed the things I wanted to be nitpicky about for me. So it was a 5-star read.
Yeah.
Let's see, did I show everybody's ratings?
Yeah, absolutely. It's I love this book. It's one of those that like it makes my guts hurt.
Sorry, Monica, I'll get back to that in just a minute.
Yeah.
I wanted to say I agree with Justin here for sure. The characters are the strength in this book, really. Right. Like honestly, the story is inconsequential.
Yeah. Well, we've read it 1,000 times before.
Yeah.
Like literally this setup, this kind of like not hate to love. I don't call this one a hate to love, but this kind of like animosity that's really attraction turns to love. Like we've read, it happens in every author's done this, but yeah. So
okay, should I highlight Monica's and we'll talk about this?
Yeah, we can see why. I mean, that is an interesting perspective. I agree kind of more like with what Justin is saying, but I mean, if that's like what you're inferring from it, then I could absolutely understand that. For me, inferred it as her brother's a spoiled brat. Yeah. And she's his older sister trying to like save him from himself is how I was reading it. But
that's how he came across to me too. And I do think that the narrator, did you listen to the audio on this, Monica, or did you read it? Because I feel like that was the character the narrator was giving him too, what Justin says right here. Privileged aristocrat.
Yeah.
Frat boy.
Well, he wanted the popular boy to like him. And he was literally letting that ruin him by letting that's how I was reading it. And that's how the grandma kind of treats him too. Like it's not just the sister, it's his grandma being like, you just have all this privilege and you're, but anyway.
But all that to say, I mean, if that is the message that you, or the feeling that you got from it, Monica, that's completely valid for you, and that would be reason for a 2-star. That makes sense. I understand.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess like I didn't see her as being mean like it. I saw her as loving her brother a lot because she, at great risk to her own reputation, repeatedly tries to help him from himself. Yeah. Like she makes this whole deal with Dane to try to save her brother from ruin. She's trying to save him from himself. So that's how I view it. But we're all welcome to our interpretations of this. But okay, let's get into okay, how do we even do this one? Oh, this is how I feel. Like so many of these, because it's like I want to go by character, but it's also like, okay, I'll just do it. So starting with Jessica for me, she is literally up until I read Devil in Disguise, Jessica Trent was my favorite historical heroine I'd ever read. Mm-hmm. She was very recently usurped. Also up there with Bennett Sharp from Sea of Ruin. Like, they're all up there for me. Because she's just so aware of who she is. She's comfortable with who she is. She's okay being a spinster. She has plans for her independent life without it being all like, rah, rah, I'm a woman and I can do what I want. It was like, no, I have a plan. I want to do this. She has a smart business plan. She is a woman of privilege. Like, she's not like, oh, raw against like the man or whatever. It's all just like, I have a plan. This is what I want to do with my life. You know, I maybe would have liked to be a mom and a wife, but if that's not it, like, I'm still going to have a dream for myself. And then she's just so unflappable, but also very honest with herself. Like, she realizes her attraction to Dane, and she talks to her grandma and she's like, I'm feeling these feelings. And her grandma's like, you like him? And she's like, I do. Oh no. She's so like, yeah, she's just so bold, but in the ways that I love. Like, honestly, she reminds, like, Merritt reminded me of her a lot when I read Devil in Disguise, because she was just so confident in her skin. She knew what was going on. She isn't, like, unaware of the way things are, though. And she knows what her reputation is worth. And to me, that's what leads her to that room with that gun. Jessica Trent in the card room with the gun is because she's like, I know what I'm worth, and I'm not going to let you take that from me because you're playing a fucking game. That's how it felt to me. And God, I just love that. I love her so much. So anyway.
Yeah. I feel like Jessica was hyped up a lot, but for me, she exceeded the hype. Like, I was not spoiled for this at all. So when she freaking shot him, I was like, what just happened? Like, I was so floored. It was one of my favorite moments I have ever read about. I adored it so freaking much. It was one of the best scenes, literally. Like, I think that the thing that we often, at least Jen and I often talk about, is how we love strong heroines, but we don't love it when they're just like, when they clearly have an agenda that it feels like the author's kind of penning for them. And I feel like Jessica Trent is a perfect example of a strong heroine who is determined to, like, she doesn't back down from Dane at all. Like, she verbally spars with him all the time. Like, he says something to her and she's like right there with him. But it is never in a way that seems like forced. It seems so true to her character. And I just absolutely loved her. She is probably my favorite heroine that I've ever read. Like, I was just like, what? I don't know. I loved it so much.
I was so, because that was me, like, I was sure that you knew that already, which I'm glad. But that's why I checked with it, is I kept being like, well, how far have you read? And you're like, oh, yeah, this. And Justin and I, we were talking behind your back, because I was like, has she read it yet? Has she read it yet? And Justin's like, she just read it. She literally messaged me. We were talking on Messenger, and I was like, she's so close. Like, she's got to be right there. And then she's like, Jen, she just read it. I was like, oh my God, yes. Because it's like, for that to still be a secret, you know, I think this book was written in 2005, you know, like, or 1995. Holy shit, this is 15, 16 years old book. You know, it's like, no, wait, the opposite way, 26 years old. So I just think that's so impressive. And I can understand someone's opinion if they say she's overhyped. I think it really depends on how much hype you'd heard before. Like, I'd heard a pretty good amount of hype. Like, Peace Love Books had read it before me, but she did like a spoiler-free vlog. So I was just like, what's so exciting about this? So as I said, like, I was listening to it on a drive, and I was like, what did she just do? Because again, it's like, she's always playing a game of chess, but not in a, like, you know, it's like, okay, I was trying to get him to realize that he liked me. I was trying to get him to, you know, do this for me, but he won't. Okay, well, now the only choice I have left, we're in Paris. I'm going to say it was a crime of passion, and, you know, that she's going to sue him for defamation of her, like, reputation. It's just so brilliant. Like, I don't care. I think it's fucking amazing. Just every move that she makes. So I'm a stan. I don't care.
I mean, like, so I have, like, Derek Craven. I love him. And then I have, like, Jessica Trent is, like, I don't know, like it wasn't even just the fact that she shot him, but it was just like every single thing that she did. And then
Yeah.
when you get towards the end of the book, even though I mean we won't get there yet, but like I didn't love the direction the plot took in the ending, but I did love how she wanted to be so nurturing with his son, you know,
I
and wanted to make them a
know.
family. Like I loved that. So I feel like she has such this like dimensional quality to her where she's tough. She's not going to let anybody walk all over her, but she's also extremely feminine and soft. You know, like I feel like she
Yeah.
just was a perfect heroine. I think.
Yeah. Well, she's just so well rounded too, you know, because she's not afraid of her sexuality, but she's also, you know, guarding her reputation, but she loves her family, but she wants to be independent. Like, I don't know. There's just, to me, the fact that she was written in like 1995, I'm like, so like, just like Justin was saying about this, you know, it's right there. It's right there. And I think what's so cool about this book is that she's the one driving the bus. Like Jessica's the one driving the bus in this book the whole way. And like, you know, as we maybe like talk about Dane too, it's amazing to me how Loretta Chase is able to have it where like Dane is like aware that she's driving the bus and he still is lovable to me too in a different way, which we'll get into, because to me, like Dane is the weaker of the two in this pair, but I
Yeah,
still
yeah.
love him for how he does react to her and things like that. So yes, we'll get into this. We'll get into this. I actually, this is one of the parts where I said there's things I don't like, but
Yeah.
she does well, and I think that it's done really well in here. But we'll get to that part too. But
I
so
just wanted to show everybody's comments as they come up so I don't forget.
yeah, it's okay. I won't forget about it. But so Dane.
Dane.
So one thing I really love in books that came out in the 90s and the early 2000s is when we get an epic, sad background for a hero. I love that. Like, I'm catnip for it. When we get to see why they're going to be a big jerk, it's always because their hearts were broken when they were a little boy. Take all of the Bridgerton books, take all of the, like, there's so many that do this. Oh, hey, Tori. Hello, my friend.
Hi, Tori.
I
That's exactly what he is.
I know. I'm so ready to talk about Dane. So
I agree with you, Justin. Yeah.
the thing about him is he is just completely on the back foot with her from moment one. And he's literally the optimum, I don't know how you say that fucking word, of the hero who is just like a broken little boy. He is a broken little boy. He has stunted growth emotionally. He reminds me of Simon in a lot of ways, but Simon has like broken better in some aspects. I mean, Simon's probably based off of him in certain ways. I wouldn't be surprised. But the way that he just can't stop, like they are fucking magnets for each other. And she wants to kind of like explore that. She's like, oh, should I just have an affair with him? And he's like, I need to get away from this woman as fast as possible. You know, from the moment he sees her in the shop, he's just like, I'm screwed. Like you there's like this fear in him almost. Like it makes him almost anxious whenever he's around her because, you know, in Italian, the fucking Italian, oh my God.
The Italian was so good. Like it was just like the icing on the cake. It was just fantastic.
Yeah. He never like tells her in English how he feels about her until the last chapter of the book. Just so you know. But he's saying how beautiful she is and like, oh my gosh, like the tea shop. Let's just talk about it. I know you want to talk about it because we have to show what he's doing is like when he's saying all those things and he means for them to be meaningless words, but actually he is saying love stuff to her. And she's like, you were saying love stuff to me. And he's like, no, I'm not. And she's like, well, everyone else thinks that you are. And then he's like, oh no, I am saying love stuff to her. I was just going to say random things, but now the truth is coming. You know, it's like the Italian is like a truth serum for him. Like he can't lie in it or something. I don't know.
That's so fun. That is exactly it. Yeah.
It's like it's his truth language. Like he can speak no lies in Italian. And he's just, I don't know, like, okay, here's one of the things I was going to say, the things that I don't like. I don't always love a hero who his background damaged him so much that it's literally his reason for everything. You know, like it's fine if there's like one aspect of your life that your background is the reason you're like that. Again, the Simon comparison. Simon has grown up pretty normal now, but there's this one part about, you know, if like he doesn't want to have kids because of his, which makes no sense, you know, but he's irrational about that one thing. Where Dane, I feel like, is just so irrational about everything but it works for me. Even though he acts like a child so much, it works for me because Jessica sees it the whole time. Okay, that's why it works. Okay, not to speak ill of Elisa Braden, and I'm not speaking ill of her, but one of her books I read recently, I won't number which one, but one of them I read recently where I was like, seriously, this hero is letting this bullshit, and the heroine doesn't see it at all. So they're both miscommunicating about something the whole time. The thing in this one is that Dane is like not sufficiently saying what he feels, but Jessica is able to read through the lines every time. She sees why he's doing this, why he's acting this way, and she never lets it be a miscommunication. So like that is just so clever to me. So normally if a hero was being this like trying to push away like this so much, I would be pissed about it. It happens time and time again where I'm like, stop pushing this person away. Or like, you're like, heroine, why are you staying with this person who's pushing you away all the time? But Jessica, she's able to see why. And she's like, he actually loves me. So I'm not going to let what he's doing get in the way of us. So anyway, that is one of the 3 things that normally bothers me in books so bad. But because he'll say something, he'll be like, Jessica, blah, 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 blah. And she'll be like, Dane, no, this, and this. And he'll be like, Christ, Jess. Okay, yeah, that's right. And then they do it. And then he did it again. And like, I don't know. That's why it worked for me is he's this broken, sad little boy who's this big beast of a man. And she's just like, I love you. We're going to make it work. I just love it. I don't know. I just love it because she, like, yeah, Jessica understands him and she refuses to let his like inability to say it get in between them. That was a really long rant, but I just love it.
I loved it. I loved it. I think this is such a perfect example of how, like you said, that they were like magnets, like they're just continually drawn to each other. Sorry, cough attack.
It's okay. Yes. Yeah. And Heather, yeah, it is a miscommunication, but it's like one-sided, but not in a bad way. Like he will act this way. He'll like their honeymoon's a perfect example. You know, he has this fight, and so he's like, "Oh, I'm dirty and gross. I don't want to be by my wife," because she'll think I'm dirty, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, he's so sexy, all dirty and gross." And then it's like, "You're not gonna sleep in a different room. You're gonna sleep by me." And I just love that. She's like, "I'm not gonna let you use distance to like separate us." So yes,
this is something that I loved about this so much, is because I feel like in the like this is another of a historical that I read recently with the emotional white fanging, which I hate, when the hero thinks that he's just not good enough for her and he pulls back, and she is not going to let him ruin their love. And I love that about her so much.
Yeah, it's just another in a long list that makes her so great. And I can understand, here's the thing, I can understand from a reader who would be like, well, that's exhausting. And I'm like, it would be if you read it all the time. Like, this is not how it goes most of the time. Like we said, like most of the time, the hero pushes you away a couple times, and then the heroine would just become despondent and they would stop being around each other. And then the hero would be like, look, it's true. I'm ruining her with my blah, blah. And it just always goes that way. So this like breaks the tropes in so many ways because he's literally doing all the things. And then, okay, I feel like this is a good 100. He has a child out of like wedlock that shows up. That is always a plot that ruins people. What does Jessica do? She's like, no, you need to go get that bastard son and bring him home because I want him. Go get him.
Yeah.
And again, like, I understand, This was what someone said up top where they were like, I don't like the secret child trope. I usually don't either, because usually it drives a huge wedge between them. And the heroine's like, oh my God, you had sex with someone before me? Oh no. Even though she totally knows that he has. And in this case, like, she's like, well, yeah, you did. It could happen to anybody, like,
Yes.
like
Yes.
devil in disguise situation again, right? And I'm like, yeah, it's not always fun when like the mean ex-girlfriend or him like shows up. But in this one, Jessica is just like, no, we want him. Go get him. You want him. We're gonna do it different. And I don't totally love that trope either, but for me, it works because of the way Jessica, Loretta Chase could have very easily have had Jessica be okay with everything. And then there's a love child, I keep saying love child. There's this bastard son. And she would be like, this too. And she could have gotten frustrated about it and Dane would have had to fix it. That could have been a choice that she made. And it's, that would have been the classic way to go. But Loretta Chase makes another choice where she's like, does Jessica Trent seem like the type of woman who would be blind to the fact that men had bastard kids? No. And would she blame this 8-year-old boy for that? No. She would bring him home. And I just love when an author knows their character so well. How many times, Crystal, do we say that a character will be like, that is not the character you've set up?
Exactly.
And now they have this. Yep. Sorry, this is not the Jen show. I just
no, Jen. Honestly, I'm loving it. Keep going. I love it.
I hate that in books. Like, we talked about this when we talked about Devil in Disguise and people being upset about, I don't want to spoil that one if no one's read it because maybe it's not our same viewers, but either way, there's a bastard child in that one. And so often the like wife will be like, oh my God, I can't believe you did this. Well, it happened before they were together and people don't use condoms. So and there's a line in that book where like Lillian is like, yeah, I bet my husband has some bastards too. Like, because they totally would. They absolutely would. And so whenever women are just like, oh my God, I can't believe it, I'm just roll my eyes because I'm like, what do you think was happening? And for Jessica to just be like, Dane is the one who's more horrified by it. And she's like, no. Okay, what did Justin say? I'll read it. Sorry. Yeah. And I think it's just to me, it's the final pushing point for Dane too, because he's literally like, this woman even wants to love this part of me that, she just wants to love. She just wants to love. And I just love that. Yeah. For me, I didn't think she understood how damaged he truly was. She saw it was damaged, but not to the extent. Yeah. Like the stuff with his mother's portrait and just how, because, I feel like men do this even today. This isn't a thing where like when they have heavy emotions, they don't want to process that emotion with their woman around, even though that would be the healthy thing to do. Yeah. And he just loved his mom so much and couldn't understand why she would leave him, and that is a perfectly understandable thing to feel, and that you would feel as an adult. There's not therapy. There wasn't therapy then or anything, and he wasn't even allowed to like talk about her. And so that only thing he has left of her is the Italian, and that's his love language for Jess. Like, there's just so much. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. So, yeah. And that she gets his mom's picture and he's like, I guess you could put her there if you want. It's fine. And then he like runs away and you're just like, oh, you're so cute. Like, yeah. They're just beautiful to me. And again, I wouldn't want to read this all the time because I don't always want the men to be emotionally immature that he is. But again, this book works in a way that others don't for me. He has reasons for being emotionally immature, where Jessica has reasons for being very mature for what she's done. She's raised lots of kids. She's been, the spinster sister who's had to be smart with her money and make good decisions. And she's seen a lot of stuff. And so it would be irresponsible for her to suddenly act differently with this man. So I don't know. He was just shocked constantly. Yeah, I know. And I love how obsessed they both were with each other. Like, let's talk about that a little bit of like, she's obsessed with his like all his big manly attributes where he's just like, I'm so big, I'm gonna hurt. Okay, I fucking love it when a man thinks that. I love it so much.
I do too. It's fantastic. It's so
And
fantastic.
she's there. I was just rereading kind of the ending part. Their like last love scene they have where she's like, I love your big hands and your big arms, and like she's listing everything. And he's just like, oh my God, I love you so much. So good. Let's talk about that, dude. This book is so sexy. This book is so sexy. They have chemistry that
So
is
much
almost
chemistry.
unmatched. Like this, like from the jump in that tea shop when he's unbuttoning the buttons.
It's one of my favorite scenes ever. I was dying over that scene.
He's unbuttoning all the buttons, and he's like, "What will people think if I take off your glove?" And she's like, "Oh, Dane, you really stepped in it." And he's like, "I'm ruining you." And she's like, "Oh, no, you're ruining yourself."
I loved how she put that spin on it. I loved it so much.
Oh, your buttons, all those buttons. Yeah.
Let's see.
Yes. Okay. Yes, my personal mouth. It's so good. And
It's
he's
so
just
good.
like, well, and okay, we can talk a little bit about the drama at the end because I know.
Okay, let's talk
Again,
about Alyssa's comment.
Yeah, because again, he's so harsh against her. However, she did try to trap. I'm not excusing that. I'm putting it in of like the time that this was written, where often if there was any other love interest for the hero, they were villainized. And that's something that, okay, still happens in books. So I don't want to lay all this blame on like historical romance authors from yesteryear because contemporary authors still write that as a trope, that the evil ex-girlfriend. But she didn't try to trap him. It's not great that she's villainous because it could have just been that the kid showing up is the third act conflict. Like him existing is enough of the third act conflict, you know?
Yeah, very true.
And I feel like it's punishment enough for this woman that like you tried to trap him and then you had the baby and, but also again, it shows the journey that Dane went through because at the beginning of this book, when we knew that this woman existed, which I only realized upon my reread, by the way. I didn't realize that she's mentioned like 3 times before he'll be like, there was that one woman who tried to trap me. Like he does say that.
Like yeah, I think I must have missed that on my one read.
Yeah, when he's thinking about like I'm not gonna let Jessica trap me like that one girl, he thinks that. But I mean, that was a danger. That was a danger for young men. But I think I could hand weave it in this book. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what else to mention about it. It wasn't great that she's trying to like hold the. She basically is like gonna sell him back to them, right? Like, I don't know. But I love how Jess is the one who like beats the shit out of the person. Dane's like, you're lucky she didn't have a gun or you'd be dead. Yeah. I don't know. I think we say like it's not great, but that's a problem that I have with like a lot of books where there's an ex-lover. Is there often made out like there was something wrong with him. I was like, Dane wouldn't have been a great father then, even if he had ended up being with this woman, and they probably would have killed each other. I mean, that's fair, Annie. That's fair. I mean, Jessica shot someone. Like, she did do a terrible thing to survive. Okay? It worked out well for her. But she could have just as easily killed him. I mean, that's what's cool is she is aiming where she's aiming, but he could have died of fever just as easily as lived just because, she shot him in the shoulder. But it's not like Jess made she shot someone to get what she wanted. It's not like innocent.
I mean, I think this is a really good point that Annie makes, though, because I feel like if that element of survival wasn't there, like that for a woman, I was gonna like for a woman in that type of a woman, what else does she have to try and claw her way out of there? You know, like obviously it is not ideal, but I also feel like it's very realistic, especially to try and get Dane. You know, she that part of it didn't bother me so much as I just didn't like it. Felt like we're trucking along with this story really great, and then it just kind of went like all of a sudden, and I just wasn't expecting it. But let's see.
Yeah. I think Candace says something. Maybe she had to be villainous, otherwise they couldn't have taken her son from her. I mean, that's true. I mean, they did villainize her to have that happen. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't, for me, the son existing just gives more ways for Jessica to show how amazing she is. So I only have so much criticism for it, even though I can have my eyes wide open and say, yes, I see what you mean. It doesn't detract it from me because it just, and when we see Dane alone with his son, we see that Jessica has rubbed off on him because we see the ways that he is now like acknowledging him and grudgingly caring for him. And we see that he's changed because he never would have done this before. He would have thrown money at it and moved on.
And that's one,
like, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's one reason why I felt like he's so close to a Derek Craven type of hero in that way. Mm-hmm. That's something that Lisa Kleypas does all the time. Is she has that classic historical romance hero just really be transformed by love, and I felt like that was just such a beautiful thing to witness with Dane, who was exactly like that, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think another thing that's interesting to examine is that Dane was right on the edge of becoming like that guy who's a villain in someone else's book. You know, like right on the edge of, because he likes to cause harm just because, you know, like before he fully knows her, he's like, she took something that I want. I am going to ruin her brother. He's going to become my best friend and I'm going to do that. Like if he wasn't going up against like Jessica, who's like, dude, we're not going to play this game, he would be the villain in someone else's story. He would have ruined someone, you know? And I think that's what's amazing about him is that he goes from a ne'er-do-well having threesomes in his house, not that threesomes make him ne'er-do-well, but the one doing that, to finding someone to live for and accepting his son back. Like, you just know that he's going to be speaking sweet Italian to her and she's going to pretend not to know what it means for the rest of their lives because she definitely would learn what those words meant and pretend to ignore them. That's totally Jessica. She'll be like, oh, he's calling me his love today. Yes. They are so sarcastic. Oh my God, I love it. It works because he will get flummoxed by her and then just be like, Christ, Jess, and walk away. And you're like, that's because you ran out of comebacks for her. Oh. Yeah.
It was. The self-hatred was definitely difficult to read at times. You're right about that.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that it's built in there from that sad prologue when he was treated that way. So, yeah. But I don't know. This was were there any of your other favorite scenes we didn't talk about?
Their first kiss.
Yes. Okay.
That's one of my favorite scenes.
That was the one that really piqued my interest.
Yeah, mine too, for sure.
Because it's like a kiss in the rain, and he keeps her bonnet, doesn't he? Does he keep her hat?
I don't remember, honestly. Like, does he keep her bonnet?
I think he keeps her hat. I can't remember, but yeah.
Yeah, they really were.
Yeah, they're so wonderful. Just yeah, I'm so glad that you ended up loving it because you tried it like 3 times. I was getting kind of scared.
I know.
I was like, please. But I also just knew because usually, like, our favorite books, we both do like. Like, I know what you
Yeah.
like. So that's why when you tried it 3 times and weren't getting it, I was like, okay, it has to be the writing style because this is made for you. Like,
Yeah,
I
it is, honestly. Like, that's the thing,
yeah,
is I feel like it was totally made for me. I just, I don't know. And I feel like if I reread this, like, I would like to reread this in like 6 months or so, just to see
yeah,
if I have that same trouble. I don't know that I would, because I would know what I'm expecting. Like, I
right,
know, you know. So I
right.
definitely want to reread it, because I just ate this book up and I read it so quickly that I know that I missed a ton of beautiful little
Yeah.
details.
Yeah. There's just that there's this is the like historical romance that makes us love the genre so much. Like
Mhm.
these type of stories, these type of heroines, like this type of heroine, guys, it comes across this comes along so rarely. Like it, we just don't see it all the time. Like there's always like they'll have a couple of traits of a powerful heroine, but then they'll be too one way about something. Like I don't know. Annie from Taming of a or from Making of a Highlander is also a heroine for me. That's really up there. I know that doesn't have to do with this, but that kind of like not easily offended by stuff, willing to see other people's sides, willing to like overlook someone being really stubborn and maybe even like rude to them and not to jump to like a hate to love. Because that's the thing. This was never fully like a hate to love. Like Dane thinks that he despises her, but he's very attracted to her. And she is completely into him all the time. Like this gets put in a hate to love a lot because there's that like but it's all sexual tension. None of it
Very
is.
true.
This is all sexual tension. And too often in historicals, when they make them a hate to love, they really should be like a sexual tension, but they do hate to love. And so then I'm like, okay, well, why do you loving this person? Like, okay, example, the Duke goes down that we both read.
Yeah.
How does that ever turn into love? How does
Yeah.
that ever
So
turn?
true. I was trying to remember what book that was. I remember now. Yeah.
Oh, you remember, like and I can't imagine writing a book. Like I always say this, I can't imagine writing a book. I just know when I read it that I can tell the difference. Like
Hmm.
hate to loves should be very rare. Like they
Yeah.
should be in mafia. They should be for like, wars against each other. Like your average like it should be like dislike to love. It shouldn't be hate because if you actually hate someone, where's the like tension part of it? I don't know. This one is like he's scared of his feelings, so he's like stay away, but he never like
Yeah.
hates this woman.
Yeah. Very
he
true.
he sees how smart she is and so good. Yeah, Justin, like that's something that when so many historicals that I start these days, they will start with a hate to love where like they literally hate each other for something stupid. Like they hate each other for something stupid. And then I'm like, okay, now you're trying to flip the switch into love. And I'm like, I don't believe it because
Hmm.
you hate each other. You might hate each other for something stupid, but you hate each other. So how is this going to work? Like he'll be rude to you behind your back and you're like, I despise him. And I'm like, okay, well then move along to someone else. Like, I don't know. That's just a personal opinion because everybody wants to write a hate to love because they can have great sexual tension when you're like yelling at each other and then you kiss. Like we all love
Hmm.
that. We love when they're yelling at each other and then they kiss. But it shouldn't be where it's legit, you know, and yeah, like enemies with each other is because to me that only really works like in mafia and dark romance because there's more like coercion and stuff going on in that. But in a historical, this is what I want. I want the heavy sexual tension that almost feels like dislike, but it's like right under the edge. So
Yeah.
yeah, there are always stupid reasons, Jessen. I complain about this all the time. It's always a stupid reason. Like I really did like the newest Kate Bateman I read because that one literally is a family rivals but they're more just like they pick at each other. They're not straight up like our families hated each other. We don't hate each other. We're just like poke at each other, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that was another side rant, but everyone wants to do an enemies to lovers, and I'm like, but then I don't believe you when you tell me they're supposed to kiss now because
Exactly.
each other.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree with you.
you know. So yeah. Anyway.
Wow.
Yeah, enemies to lovers is tough. And I thought like I love enemies to lovers.
I thought so too. Yeah.
But it's becoming clear to me what I really want is like a certain level of it. Like I don't actually want them to be enemies. I want them to maybe be like rivals, or they're from families that aren't supposed to like each other. But then when they meet each other, they're like, "Oh, I don't actually hate you. Okay, cool." Like,
I think the one place where I really do love enemies to lovers, if it's a fantasy romance,
yeah.
like that's where I feel like it shines, and Mafia, like you said, but I feel like they have a lot of the same parallels or structure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, our favorite fantasy of all time. One of the best enemies to lovers ever.
Yes.
So good. So good. When that third book finally comes out.
I need to read the second one.
I know. You do. We were gonna buddy read that back in like January.
I know. We're bad at buddy reading at the same time. We're always a few days off.
I know. Okay, well, our next book
Oh, yay.
is going to be this one. Super excited about that.
I'm excited about that too.
Yeah. Also, I did notice because our November book, everyone, you probably know, y'all know this, but is going to be The Highwaymen. And I believe those books are on Kindle Unlimited right now.
Are they?
Oh. I believe so, because I was browsing for a different book and I saw the KU symbol above one of her books. Maybe you should check.
I'll check real quick.
You forgot the E at the end.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm talking about A Heart of Blood and Ashes, Justin. So that's our favorite fantasy of all time. I feel like I can speak for Crystal when I say that. So.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite, yeah. It is on Kindle Unlimited. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I highly recommend those audiobooks, though. If you... I don't know if those are on any play, but the narrator for those books, oh my God, I love him so much.
It's so good.
He does so many Scottish books, but...
Do we have December?
No. We have through November.
Okay. We need to figure that out, I guess.
Yeah. We have some time yet. We're focused on our 1-year anniversary thing, and we'll let you know.
Yeah.
Some of the other ones. Yes, that's from book 2. Caleb.
I'm like, who's that?
He's I think that's the cat.
The cat! Yes, that's why I want to read it.
After you read it, I want you to make me a tumble creature that's a snake. I mean, I'm not making it.
Let me read his description and I'll see if it's something I can do.
Oh my gosh, he's so great. Anyway, winter is coming. I feel like you'll be inspired. Like I get in a fantasy mood in the winter.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure I will be.
Anyway, well, this was so great. Thank you so much for reading my favorite book and not hating it.
I loved it. You were right. And Jessin was right.
Yes,
it's worth the hype. It is worth the hype. I loved it.
Yes, Jessin supports Tumble Camp. Yeah, he's so great. That hero is also like, he's a cinnamon roll. He's an alpha cinnamon roll. He's great. He's so great. So different from Matic. Sorry that I'm talking about fantasy.
I'm excited. Maybe I'll pick that up. I still haven't picked up a book since I finished.
Right. The audio's on Anyplay.
I have the audio. I bought it. I bought it to read last.
You know what? You should. We should. I'm putting a pitch for that one because I know you can pick what to read. You should try that one and see. Oh gosh.
Maybe I will. Yeah.
That I should reread that one too. Oh my gosh. I don't know if my brain's not quite in fantasy mode yet, but it will be. But thanks, Stacy. Sorry, now we're just rambling because we're.
I know. I'm sorry. We're just chit chatting. I'm getting tired.
Well, yeah, this took a lot out of you having to talk to someone. But anyway, thank you for coming to my TED Talk about why Jessica Trent is the best ever.
It was great. It was wonderful. Thanks everybody for joining us. We will see you next month. Love y'all.
Bye.